World War II, many countries thought that the world needed a new economic system. That's why in 1944 the Bretton Woods Agreement happened in New Hampshire at Bretton Woods. This is where 44 countries basically got together, discussed what was going on in our global economic situation, and because the US actually held two-thirds of the total gold supply in the world, actually all the other currencies ended up being pegged to the US dollar. So basically in this video, what we're going to go over is I think this important time frame between the birth of the Federal Reserve, which is what The Creature of Jekyll Island, one of my favorite books, talks about, very, very long, but very, very important for anyone that doesn't fully understand the financial system. Basically, the birth of the Federal Reserve, then the Bretton Woods Agreement after World War II, and then after, basically at the Bretton Woods Agreement, just for a basic overview, other currencies were pegged to the US dollar, but the US dollar was also pegged to gold. So we had the gold standard. It was still somewhat reasonable. But then after a bit of time, like let's see, what was that, around 30 years, because in 1971 Nixon took the US dollar off the gold standard. So this was so monumental. I don't think this is taught enough in school. I don't think enough people recognize this. It's so fundamental. The dollar and currencies are not pegged to anything. They can be printed. There is, and we're seeing this in 2020, and we'll see it a lot more in 2021. And I think we're going to be recording a lot more videos on macroeconomics, how I would say monetary stimulus really comes about, the difference between inflation and just injecting money into via stimulus, via quantitative easing, QE, injecting that into the monetary supply, and what the differences are there, because QE is not the same as inflation. Inflation is something that comes after. It's like an after effect. So let's dive into it. Basically, this agreement, as I said, was negotiated on July 19th, 1944, and it was a financial conference held with 44 countries in Bretton Woods, New Hampshire. This is where the name, the Bretton Woods Agreement or the Bretton Woods System, came from. And the reason this is very, very important is, as I said in the beginning of this video, after World War II, it was very, very apparent that the world needed kind of a new economic system. This wasn't working out. What happens to countries, for example, if there's a lot of other developed countries that won't give them investment funds? How do these countries develop? How do these countries get out of poverty? How do they become out of third world countries into more prosperous countries? And this was also part of the Bretton Woods Agreement. And this was the IMF. Basically, this was a bank, I guess you could say, that would help fund emerging countries and emerging markets. And since on this channel we talk a lot about, obviously, global investment strategies, one of the biggest things is emerging market real estate, emerging market kind of investing, whether it's in businesses, there's many different ways you can kind of get into emerging market investing. But this is something that's very, very interesting when this IMF was really working and when this idea was kind of born. Because the issue is here is, you have some countries like the US, like I would say Canada, like Australia, like a lot of the Northern European countries that are financially very, very well off. And the US is actually a bit of a complicated topic on that one. But essentially, there's a lot of these other countries that are more emerging market countries that really need funds. And now you have, I would say, more of kind of like a global system where you're having a lot of foreign investors inject money into these countries, which is great. That's how a free market should run. But at this time, we needed a system like the IMF to help out countries like this, especially in this, again, the world was in shambles after World War II. So we needed a new system. We needed the IMF, and then we had the World Bank. And so those were kind of the two things that went along, the IMF and the World Bank, along with the US dollar being kind of the global reserve currency, as we now call it. And at this time in 1944 with Bretton Woods, it was pegged to the gold standard. So all these countries agreed that this was for the better of everyone. But little did they know that Mr. Nixon would end up taking the dollar off the gold standard, which is a big issue, because in hindsight, maybe at the time this seemed like a great idea, but it's a strange situation because it's very manipulated. It was almost like this was planned. I'm not saying that's the case, but the fact that the US dollar was the global reserve currency, and just about 30 years after, we go, oh, we're still going to be the global reserve currency. We're not going to negotiate that, but the fundamentals, the thing that the structure of this building, we're just going to pull that out. it's fine. We're just going to let the building float. You know, we're not going to have any structure here. We're not going to have any fundamentals of being tied to a fixed asset, which is gold. So again, it makes sense because at the time, the U.S. held 2/3 of the global gold supply. Now things have changed a lot, and at this time, basically this is what went down. So to kind of summarize, the Bretton Woods system required a currency pegged to the U.S. dollar, which was in turn pegged to the price of gold. And basically understanding that this collapsed in 1907, but created lasting influence to peg the U.S. dollar, which was in turn pegged. This created lasting influence. I apologize for that, on the international currency exchange and trade through its development of the IMF and the World Bank, as I talked about earlier. I honestly probably should have just riffed on this video, but thanks for sticking with me. I was reading off a little bit of notes I'd taken, but I understand this topic very well, especially if you read The Creature of Jeckel Island. Very, very interesting. I'm always interested in these things because the way I see it is like, it's like the history of the creation of the rules in Monopoly. So like, we're all playing this game of Monopoly, and some people are playing the game and they've never read the rules. Some people are playing the game and somebody else told them the rules, word of mouth, like the game Telephone. And then some people, their parents told them, oh, here, let me sit you down with these rules. By the way, on the back, there's this hidden set of rules that like less than 1% of people know about. And that's really what The Creature of Jeckel Island talks about, is how things actually work in the financial system. Not just like what they teach in school, not what they want you to know, but the actuality, you know, in real life. Not what people that are teaching about it know, but people that actually do it, people that are working in the system. And that's why I think this is so important to understand. So, to really understand the rules, and Bretton Woods is a piece of that. It's a kind of a piece of the rules. And this was really the first example of a fully negotiated monetary order intended to govern monetary relations among independent states. So it's interesting. It's kind of like a very historical event. I think the birth of the Federal Reserve in the 1910s was also a historical event that a lot of people don't know about. And this was, you know, a bunch of big bankers who met on Jeckel Island. So I can't recommend that book enough. I apologize if I've been harping on it, but what's worth knowing is worth repeating. So how it collapsed in 1971, basically concerned that the U.S. gold supply was no longer adequate to cover the number of dollars in circulation. President Richard Nixon devalued the U.S. dollar relative to gold. So we're seeing that even more today. It's absolutely insane. That's why on the channel we talk about a lot of inflation hedge assets, a lot of understanding. We're kind of doing these more macro style videos. You know, I did a video on modern portfolio theory. We're going to do probably a video on MMT, modern monetary theory. Very controversial. Some people love it, some people hate it. But polarizing things are a lot of what people like. So that's what we're going to talk about. Also, that's really why I focus on blockchain and cryptos, because when you're, as Robert Kiyosaki says, gold is God's money. Gold and silver is like God's money, but Bitcoin is the people's money. And I find it fascinating because the name Bitcoin instantly polarizes people. Like, it instantly sounds like some people have this bias where it's like they link the word Bitcoin to scam. And they see things as black and white. But don't do that. Do your own research. Understand these things fundamentally. Really dive into them. Maybe I'll record like an hour-long video on the monetary policy of Bitcoin versus gold versus the US dollar, or fiat currency as we know it. So I apologize if I kind of went on a rant this video, but basically to wrap up, Bretton Woods Agreement was the US dollar becoming global reserve currency. Originally it was pegged to gold. Then in 1971, President Richard Nixon took the dollar off the global gold standard, and the US dollar is still the global reserve currency. So let's see if that continues here in the next 10, 20, 30 years, but it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. So thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please leave us a review down below in the comments. What do you think about the Bretton Woods Agreement? Did you think I messed up in this video a bunch, slurring my words? And I think I should have just riffed personally, but I was reading off some notes, and because I know this topic so well. But anyways, let us know in the comments down below what you think of the Bretton Woods Agreement. If you like this kind of macro style video, historic economic policy, and what you think, will the US dollar still be the global reserve currency 20 years from now, 30 years from now? Let me know. Also, please leave us this video a like and hit that subscribe button. Also click that notification bell and tick all, because we record a lot of time-sensitive videos that you need to know about. So thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, let us know down below. Till next time.